Well, good afternoon, everyone, or perhaps good morning or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. We know we have some people joining us from the US and Asia today, as well as the UK. A very warm welcome wherever you are. We're so pleased that in our audience today, we have old members, we have Univ staff, friends of the college, and many donors and supporters. Thank you so much for joining us today. For those who don't know me, my name is Felice Nassar, and I'm the Director of Development, Communications and Alumni Relations here at Univ. Before we begin, I wanted to let you know that we are working on a Univ North docu-series, a series of videos about the origins and development of Univ North. So do keep an eye on our communications, particularly our YouTube channel, for more information about that. I should mention too that this event is being recorded and will be available on the events pages of the Univ website afterwards. Now we have an interesting programme for you coming up. Our speakers include Univ North Project Director and Finance Bursar, Andrew Grant. Following Andrew's overview, George Eilert from the contractors SDC will share some images and slides of the buildings at Univ North and update you on progress at the site. And our new domestic bursar, Frances Wright, or Fran Wright as she's also known, will speak on the transition of the buildings being handed over to the college's functional estate to being made ready for student occupation next Michaelmas term. And she'll explain what she and her team are working hard on currently. There is a Q&A facility at the bottom of your screens, so do submit your questions there, and we will answer as many questions as we can at the end of the presentations. You can also email questions after the event to rsvp@univ.ox.ac.uk, and that email address should appear in the chat imminently. And we will get back to you via email if you wish to submit a question that way. We will share the slides with attendees after the event as well. So now on to our programme, and allow me to introduce Univ North Project Director, Andrew Grant.
Thank you, Felice, and good day to every one of you. You join us at a truly momentous time. June 2025 is probably as frantic a month as any of us can imagine, but last week we saw the very first building come into our hands, deemed practically complete in the jargon, and it means that Univ has now accepted its first building into its hands. The building is the nursery, which if I may be whimsical for a moment, I find slightly ironic given that we are building student accommodation, but it is nevertheless very welcome, and I'm in the throes of negotiating with Oxford University Estates and Childcare Services to complete the process of essentially providing an assured hander of that building to them, so that they can then operate it in the manner that we envision, excuse me, i.e. as a fully functioning nursery as part of the university's childcare offer. This is a huge milestone, therefore, and it's an illustration of the complexity and the challenge that even this one building, with all the paperwork and the certifications and processes, we received over 1 gigabyte of data and records last week, and not one of it was photos or videos or anything that's extremely consumptive in space. It is just simply an awful lot of paperwork and awful lot of data. Nevertheless, we have now got effective registered building control certification of our first building, and this week we're hoping to get the second. That'll be Watercourt Villa West, which will be one of the first buildings to house our student body. So the process is very much in train. The first buildings of this 7-building development for phase 1 are coming into our hands, and it would be lovely just to bask in the glory of that. But actually, we're very, very busy just going through the mechanics and the process of that, as well as keeping all the other buildings suitably fed with client instruction and finessing the details of each of them. So, extremely exciting time. It does signal not quite the beginning of the end, but definitely the end of the middle of the project, and we are enormously pleased to be hitting these milestones at something like the indicated timing. What else is ahead for June? Well, after this week's delivery of Watercourt West, with its 24 odd bedrooms and gym, we have a 3-week hiatus before we then take receipt of Watercourt East with its common space. And then Woodstock Pavilion will be the last to be delivered this month. Probably the last week of June will be the most likely delivery time. So we're phasing these deliveries, not least so that we can help support Fran Wright, who Felice introduced earlier, in the process of embedding these new functional buildings into our functional premises and preparing them for occupation. That's on the sort of those buildings that, shall we say, are coming to the end of their construction life. What are we doing about the ones that are very much in train and still need to be defined? And for the most part, the Walnut Lawn Villa and the Banbury Road Villa are well established and well defined in terms of their structure and form. And SDC Builders Limited are cracking on, delivering some truly outstanding work. And my colleague George Eilert at SDC will be taking you through some of the latest photographs. And I do ask you to pause and reflect on the quality of the brickwork, which, believe me, shines through not only through the photos, but should any of you have the opportunity to come and have a look, you will see that they truly look quite stunning. Beautiful buildings, brilliantly executed, and one can't ask for more than that. What we are facing with respect to the project direction and project definition at the moment is the challenge of establishing what Fairfield Villa should look like. Now this, for those of you who have some familiarity with the project and the project scope, you'll remember is an Edwardian villa, 120 years old, and by conservative estimate, it has had no maintenance attention for nearly 2 decades. It is in a truly sorry state. We have demolished a whole raft of contemporary structures and buildings and attachments, so it is sporting now some pretty ugly demolition scars. All the windows, all the fenestrations need to be replaced. The roof needs to be stripped back and refelted and rebattened and relaid. And that's just to get the building watertight, whilst we define exactly what is the internal configuration that is going to be optimal for the college. And whilst we're doing all of that, we're trying to make sure that what I quite often refer to as the quart pot of demands for detailing and additional elaborations for the buildings all needs to be fitted into the pint pot of available funds, so that we make sure that your generous and very welcome and precious donations are being put to, shall we say, the most maximally efficient use. So in parallel with these buildings coming into our hands following registered building inspection certification and all the processes of closing out the Univ Development Company deliberations before handing them across to the college for functional readiness. We are deep in the throes of still trying to resolve the final definitions for Fairfield Villa and the completion of the project. That project will run through out until May, June next year, and so we have about a year's worth of work to do. So you hit us, if I might summarize, what on the face of it are the most exciting of times, but they are also still incredibly busy times. And with that, one's mindful that there is still some governance process to play through with Finance Committee and Oversight Committee, and indeed governing body itself, to make sure that we stay firmly on track with respect to what it is that we're delivering and how the bills are coming through. Before closing, I just want to repeat my thanks for all those generous supporters, either in cash or in kind. The very welcome support I've had with respect to some of the challenges of the moment as we've gone through to this point. And I'm confident that if needs be, I can call on you, any of you again, to help us see this wonderful project through to its final conclusion. With that, I shall hand over to my dear colleague at SDC, who can perhaps bring some life to my words with some pictures and some images and the reality of what we are taking on as this project continues to deliver its piece. With that, I thank you for the moment.
Thank you, Andrew, for that introduction. And I do very quickly, before we start, from SDC, want to thank you and thank the college for your continued trust and patience with us as we've been getting the final bits of the nursery and Watercourt West finished in time to hand them over. This update today is a very quick run through of where we are currently, where progress has been made, and the current status of all the buildings that we're delivering. My name is George Eilert. As Andrew says, I'm the relationship manager for SDC Builders, and I'm involved very closely in the Univ North project, supporting the team on site with events like this and the site marketing and project marketing that we do. The timeline for the project, as Andrew has mentioned, is we are over the hump on the program and well into sort of the final third of the scheme. So, as he mentioned a few weeks ago or last week, we handed over possession of the nursery, which was a big milestone for us, and we're really quite proud of the state of and the condition of that building and the quality of the work that's been achieved. Later on this week, we'll be handing over Watercourt West. Before, I think the plan is then next week we will hand over Watercourt East, followed by Woodstock Pavilion in a few weeks later. So over the next few weeks, it's going to be a really quite busy period for us on site as we get those final items on those buildings complete and hand possession over to the college. Later on this year, then students will move in for Michaelmas term before we then finish the final two buildings, Banbury Road Villa and Walnut Lawn Villa, in the summer next year, May, June time. Very quick reminder of the site layout is that towards the western end on Woodstock Road, you have the nursery building number 7 there marked, and Woodstock Pavilion building number 8. And then we head over to the eastern part of the site where you can see Watercourt West and East 12 and 13. Item 14 is Walnut Lawn Villa, which houses the cafe, and then Banbury Road Villa, which is the most recent building to go up. And that's where the Porter's Lodge will be located. So the nursery, as we said, has been completed and handed over. This is the main entrance to the nursery, and the landscaping here, while we've still got those fences up, is quite something. And that magnolia tree, once it's in full bloom and over the summer, is makes the space quite pleasant to be. The play area out the back is a mix of this artificial grass, some of the shredded rubber surface, and then some natural bark as well for the children to play in this quite secluded, private and sheltered garden area. This is the western side of Watercourt West, with its with the lawn being showed there. And now that the scaffolding has been removed, you can really see some of the quality of the brickwork there. All of the bricklayers that work on the building that we use are directly employed by us, which means we've got a really good control over the quality and pace and the training of the site operatives who lay the bricks. A lot of them have been with us since they were apprentices, and we are really quite proud of the work that they achieve, especially with some of these really quite intricate details that are shown. So above those second floor windows, you've got the corbelled brick effect where they step out as you go up each level, which for our design managers has been a real pain in the neck to coordinate and finalize the design on. But once it's been laid and the bricks are in, it is a really fantastic effect. You can see on the right that close-up photo that shows just how intricate those finishes and details are. Moving eastwards, in between Watercourt West and East, is the Rill, the water feature, that runs in between the two buildings. This shows the site a few weeks ago as it was. We'd had the Rill built, the landscaping around it had still not been done, and it did look a little bit messy. But fast forward a few weeks, the paving has been laid, the planter for the Katsura tree that's going at the southern end of that Rill is well underway, and that space, once you've got some greenery in there, will become a really quite pleasant space to be, calming and relaxing for students. Inside, the bedrooms are fantastically well designed and create a really nice and enviable space for students. Far cries from the student accommodation that we all knew in the old days. So there's fixed furniture, desks that overlook the windows, plenty of power, modern lighting, and in some of those rooms you can see the CLT, the cross-laminated timber structural part of the building is exposed and really creates quite a nice environment for students to be in. On the ground floor of Watercourt West is the gym space. The room thankfully has moved on a little bit since that photograph was taken, but it's quite a large area for plenty of fitness equipment and for students to exercise and keep healthy. Also, I think is a nice area for people to switch off and relax, which is what we all need sometimes, isn't it? Walnut Lawn Villa it was the third CRT pavilion and building that we erected. And at current, this is the latest progress photo taken last week. So the brickwork facade, sadly you can't see because the scaffolding is still up, but we're up to the second floor now, working on those gables into the roof. The roof has been completely felted and battened, and the tilers are working their way around at pace to get that building, waterproof from upwards. All of the windows are in as well, and apart from a few that we've left out to enable deliveries and material access. That building is then, ongoing internal fit out. So the first fix, mechanical and electrical works, which is all the cables and pipes that you don't see behind the walls, are going in. We're installing the kitchens, some flooring. We're doing some internal decorating on the second floor. And the strategy is that we work from the top and go down second floor, first floor and ground, so that we're not then tracking, dirty boots and large pieces of equipment through the building and damaging all the work that has been done. On the ground floor, the commercial kitchen is being installed for the cafe, and the specification of the equipment that's being installed will be a real testament to the quality of food that they're able to produce in that space, and will be something that's, I'm sure, envied across the university. Now, Banbury Road Villa was the final building that still needed to be erected. This photograph was taken probably about 6 or 7 weeks ago, that shows the ground floor slab and the concrete upstrands ready to receive the frame. And then last week, this was the latest progress. So one of the defining benefits of cross-laminated timber is the speed at which we're able to put the frame and get the structure of the building complete. They arrive in large prefabricated panels that are then craned into position, slotted together sort of like a big Meccano Lego set. The current plan that we have is that we'll have the structure complete probably in the next week or so. So a 8 or 9 week time frame to complete the structure of a building is almost unheard of, especially if we were to use concrete or brick and block. So what that's done is allow us to not only be more environmentally responsible with the way that the building is built, but also reduce the length of time that we're on site and causing disruption to the neighbours, and ultimately get the building handed over to the college faster. That is me sort of finished. So I will now hand over to Fran Wright, who's the domestic bursar at Univ.
Thank you so much, George, and thank you for letting me speak today. It's lovely. I'm still very new, but I am in the lovely position of starting this role at a really exciting time if you're a domestic bursar, which is sort of taking on buildings and fitting them out and doing all those things. And I'm also very delighted to have been given a really good period of time to be able to do that. It's very nice to be handed the buildings at this time and not have anybody need to be in them for a couple of months. That's nice. It gives us lots of time to make sure we get it right. I have put together a little bit of a presentation, which Emma has very kindly done for me, which just is showing you a few photos that Shane, our accommodation manager, has taken as he's gone through Watercourt West, and they just sort of give you an idea of the rooms as well, although George showed you a little bit there. So Shane and I have been planning some of this for a bit of time. So we're not just sort of been given a building and going, we've been ordering beds, we've been ordering mattresses, and at the moment we're picking the colours of the desk chairs, making sure that they align well with the NMLA colours that are in there, so that everything sort of flows very nicely together. I like bright colours, but we know that that's not right in these buildings. We're hoping we can sort of start this next stage while SDC will still be there doing their snagging, so that we can sort of make sure that that's done in line with us. Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Emma. Yeah, there's sort of one of the bathroom pods, which is sort of in most of the buildings, except for the accessible rooms. They have their own sort of bathrooms. Yes, so we hope that we can sort of, yes, have SDC and just doing those little snagging bits while we're sort of setting up the room, so that that's all done at the same time. We don't have to sort of do any of those things once the students are in. For the kitchens, we're working with a company called Raw, who are a local company in Oxford. They're a fantastic company that work with all sorts of people from different backgrounds in life. They work with people who are homeless, people who've had addiction issues, and they sort of channel them to do these amazing bits of furniture. So we're looking to have tables that fit in the kitchens and seat everybody on a floor so that all the students can eat at the same time, which would be absolutely lovely. And that should be a really sort of high quality bit of furniture that really reflects sort of the rest of the building and the wonderful wood that you can see in the bedrooms and in the CLT paneling. So then hopefully we're going to go to the workshop at Raw and have a little look at those tables and get those going soon. On a staffing front, we've got Shane, who is the accommodation manager I mentioned. He's all over this. He's planning how many housekeepers we're going to need and all those sorts of things as we go. It's lovely, as I said, to be able to get a building at a time, because that gives us a really good idea about making sure we don't overstaff, but we don't understaff either. But we still have Angie Carter, who lots of people will remember. She's been here for 20 years and is an absolute gem. And I know her parents were here before her as well, so she's a proper Univ treasure. And we're hoping that she will be a font of knowledge and support as we work through these buildings, and will help us with some of the security aspects as well. Because obviously, as we take on a building, we have Hugh, who's the sort of head of the buildings and maintenance team here at Univ, who will be doing an awful lot of work getting them fire safe, and we're going to make sure those alarms really work. And Angie, I think, will be really, really helpful with that, and just her knowledge of the whole of the Staverton site is fantastic, and certainly very helpful for someone like me who's still very new. We'll be working closely with Hugh, as I said, and hopefully at some point when the new lodge is up, we'll sort of move some of the lodge team over. But I think, for me, one of the challenges will be to sort of make sure these sites interact with each other really well. Tom, our head gardener, is currently coming up and meeting Scott and various other people on site this week to start some of that landscaping and ordering thousands of plants, he tells me, which I think will start to really bring the whole site to life and just give it that warm feel, as George mentioned earlier. Once that landscaping's in, it just changes the whole feel. So Tom and Robbie, the groundsman, are looking forward to doing that and really getting their teeth into that project. So it's all very exciting. Lots of ordering, lots of setting up of rooms, and then hopefully we'll be able to share some of those photos as well as soon as we've got a bit more in place. So thank you very much for your time today, and I'm now going to hand over to Felice for the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Fran, and my thanks to everybody who's spoken. So we're now going to move into a Q&A section, and thank you to those of you who have submitted questions so far. We have got around about 15 minutes to answer questions, which is great. So we've got time to address as many of these questions as we can. And I'm going to try and answer them or ask them in the order they've been submitted. So the first question is, what input have students had in the fitting out of the accommodation? So Andrew, perhaps if you'd like to address that question first off.
This has been a funny one in the sense that a couple of years ago we extended an invite to students to engage in the design and the detail of the shaping of the bedrooms and so on. And so long as you promise not to repeat this, we got zero participation. The issue now, of course, is that we can probably more effectively engage the students with the process that Fran has just very kindly and thoroughly talked through, because for those who are coming to the end of their first year, they will be able to perhaps reap the benefits of any engagement with, as second year undergraduates in these new buildings. So in one sense, perhaps that's one for Fran to respond to maybe at the next video call, rather than dropping her in the lurch this time around, unless she's willing to speak to it, because the student engagement has been out there, but there's obviously a profound recognition that it needs to be slightly more immediate, and the stakeholders, the neighbours, the city council, the county council, the traffic management, childcare services, and so on and so forth. Everybody else has had their input, but perhaps despite our efforts, we've not been quite ready to really have students engage with us as willingly as they might. But I think that's now going to change with these buildings coming into our hands.
Great, thank you very much, Andrew. So the next question is about landscaping. When does the landscaping of the site begin? I remember there was going to be some new trees. Will they be mature trees, and when will they be planted?
Okay, that stays with me. I mean, at the moment, what Tom Bartlett, the head gardener in Fran's team, who's been absolutely superb in every particular, has been taking on is a lot of the small-scale landscaping and operations, simply because the more familiar the domestic bursary is with the landscape, the better it will be maintained. However, the mature trees, the big trees, the ones with the large root balls, perhaps over a metre and a half in radius, they're physically beyond the capability of what we in college can meaningfully handle. And so we've relied on SDC with their telehandlers and heavy equipment to handle the big stuff. So there's a string of Scots pines to be installed. There's the Katsura tree that George mentioned, and Zelkova trees and others that are around the site that will be varying degrees of specimen trees with a sense of maturity, so that we can at least get some sense of place from the get-go. But for the most part, the whole idea here is to create readily maintained beautiful landscapes, and Fran's team has been point and centre of all of that.
Great, thanks so much, Andrew. Right, our next question, I think, is one for Fran. Will there be scouts at Univ North, or will the students have to clean their own rooms?
Well, there will be scouts at Univ North.
Sorry, Fran, we can't quite hear you.
Oh, so yes, there will be scouts at Univ North, but the students might have to do a bit of cleaning of their rooms as well, but there will definitely be scouts.
Great, thank you. So there's a question about the nursery now, which I think is probably another one for Andrew. Who will be providing childcare at the nursery, and who is the nursery for?
Okay. So in my opening words, I explained that the nursery will be in our hands for just a brief period, because it will be subject to a head lease for the Oxford University estates to take it on a full repairing and insuring basis. If you'll pardon the jargon, it basically means that we will be handing that building over to the university to operate. As a quid pro quo for that generous donation to the university's nursery estates, University College will have 15 priority places at any nursery of its choosing across the 5-6 nurseries that Oxford University Childcare Services operate. And Childcare Services subcontract the operation of the nurseries to Kids Planet at the moment, a professional provider with a very good reputation, and they will ultimately be the subtenant of the Univ nursery and will operate childcare services and nursery services for our offspring and others alongside. The other thing that will happen is that we will have a seat on the Childcare Services Management Committee, and Fran Wright, unless she does some very rapid ducking, bobbing and weaving, will represent University College on that committee, helping to ensure that Univ's interests and indeed wider interests are met by by Childcare Services and Kids Planet. So that has always been the intention, and it's starting to come together, and we're hoping to get it sorted by September. But there's quite a few things that will need to be addressed and land in good order, not least all the regulatory requirements for setting up a nursery. So time is pressing on that, but that's the plan. I hope that responds.
Indeed, thank you very much again, Andrew. So the next question is really about the current students, those who are living at STARS. What has been the impact on students over this academic year whilst the building work has been going on? I presume, Andrew, that's another question for you.
We've heard very little, unless everybody's too scared to tell me. We've had neighbours complaining about the noise, but SDC have been very attentive from day one in providing a forward plan for noisy works during the week, and with very little exception, we've just had a pretty smooth run, simply because we've signalled when there have been occasional noisy works, and been able to discount them just simply because by virtue of them not being a surprise. I think the other thing that George's pictures illuminate is that with a lot of the fabrication being off-site, the number of deliveries to site are quite limited. The craning of these cross-laminated timber panels into location is silent, but to a large extent. It's not like there's the big hammering, thumping, banging, graunching and so on that is typical of a building site. Not least because we're very mindful of the old members in the Fairfield residential home, not just students, but the wider population. So I think that has been relatively very successful. For the most part, our third years who might be doing finals and therefore potentially more disturbed, we house back at main site anyway. So it's just second years and graduates and others at Univ North. And so I think that probably keeps the concern kept to a minimum.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. And you've actually partially answered the next question, which is who will be in the rooms at Univ North. So we've already said second years and graduate students. But there's another part to that question, which is, will they be more expensive than the rooms on the main site?
There's no plans to make them more expensive just because they're more lovely. The costs of providing accommodation, as the current students will tell you, have been carefully calculated and have it's rare that costs go down, I'm afraid to say. But for undergraduates, the college has maintained a very proud tradition of flat pricing, and I see no appetite amongst either the junior members nor the governing body to change that flat pricing strategy. The tension then, of course, becomes one of, well, you've got a really lovely spanking brand new room with an ensuite facility and Fran personally scouting and cleaning it, whereas I've got one that's slightly beat up and derelict and at least 60 years old, and can't remember the last time it saw a lick of paint. So one of the things that Fran and Hugh Davis, the building's maintenance manager, and I are thinking about is how to try and bring some of the more, less attractive rooms up to a standard, so that we can minimise these anxieties. Flat pricing still remains the case. For graduates, they continue to toy with differential pricing, but until they're willing to say yes to that, the college is not minded to impose it.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Andrew. So another question is about funding. Does the college feel confident it has the funds for continued maintenance once the buildings are turned over? And perhaps we can answer that question, maybe between Andrew and Fran, maybe to talk about the conferencing side of things.
Well, I think the conferencing side of things is a different matter. The operating costs for Univ North are budgeted and held within the provisions. I think Fran was slightly surprised when she sat down with me in the early days that she remarked, and with delight, that some of these things had actually been thought about years in advance rather than 2 days after the event. So I'll hand back to Fran on the sort of maintenance and operation and scouting provision, and see what's left of that question once she's finished. Perhaps over to you, Fran.
Well, just to say, yes, I mean, it was delightful to discover these things had been thought about and perhaps had not been in previous roles I've held. I think we're still looking at exactly how we're going to provide the staffing. As I said earlier, when talking about the scouts, you don't want to under-provide or over-provide, you know, so I think we have some sketched ideas about how many we will need of each of those areas and the work that they'll do to continue to maintain the buildings, maintain the security, you know, look after them. But I think we've definitely got ample provision put aside. We might not actually need all of it. I think it will be a sort of trial and error a little bit, won't it?
Thank you, Fran. Anything to add, Andrew, or shall we move on?
Let's move on.
Okay. Right, so another question, which is about signage, which I can probably speak to a little bit, but also would welcome input from others as well. So how are you ensuring consistency between the design of signage on site and donor recognition? I've seen some ghastly examples in other colleges around Oxford. Well, I won't comment on those. But just to say, in my team, the development and communications team, we've been doing a lot of benchmarking work, looking at not only other colleges in terms of donor recognition, but also in other arts institutions, galleries where donor boards appear, really just trying to get a feel for what works and what doesn't work. And really we're working closely with the project director and the team as well, in order to ensure consistency of design, so that there will be a certain echoing of building materials in the signage and the donor recognition, just to make sure that it has a very consistent and harmonious feel about it. We don't want the signage and the donor recognition to sort of stand out like a sore thumb, and equally it has to serve its purpose in showing people, in terms of wayfinding, showing people where to go, but it needs to be something that is sort of in keeping very much with the rest of the design of the whole project. Andrew, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I don't think so. I think there will be statutory signage that we are obliged to follow a particular format for registered building inspection certification. But what you describe and the work you've been doing is wholly comporting with that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Right, I think we've got time just to slip in one last question, which is, how are you ensuring that students are kept up to date on project progress? So if I can start the answer to that, which is just to say we have kept students informed by including sort of news items, updates in their weekly what's on emails. We've put posters up in the buildings, in the staff buildings themselves as well. We held events similar to this that students can sign up to. Students have been able to sign up to this event as well. So we've done a range of different options for students to sign up to and keep informed by. So we've done as much as we can on the communication side of things, and I think as time goes on and the students move in Michaelmas term, we'll keep that information flow open as well. So I think we are bang on time, actually. So that leaves me just to say an enormous thank you to our speakers today, to Andrew, George and Fran, for your time and your expertise in giving to this event. Thank you also to all our guests who have attended. Obviously, Univ North is a hugely exciting development for the college, which has been made possible by the exceptional generosity of over 600 donors. So huge thank you to everybody who has supported this extraordinary project. If you do have any further questions, please do feel free to email them through to rsvp@univ.ox.ac.uk. That email address is in the chat as well. And do keep an eye on our communications for the Univ North docuseries. But that's it for now. Thank you all to everybody. Goodbye.